Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode of Palace Intrigue. The Crown returns to Season 5 on November 9th, and we plan to share episode recaps as part of this feed on the weekend. Yesterday we recapped Season 1, so let's take a look at Season 2. It is 1957, and Elizabeth, who looks utterly fed up with her husband's whining, says she understands that their marriage isn't what the two of them had signed up for. As Elizabeth places a love letter she's written to her dear Philip in his briefcase, she comes across a picture of another woman, ballerina Galina Alanova. Episode 1 pairs with Episode 2, with Philip trailing the world as the Queen deals with the Suez Canal crisis. Finally, by Episode 3, we get back to the core drama. Philip complains, "I'm currently outranked by my 8-year-old son." The Queen points out he is the heir to the throne. Philip is given the title Prince of the UK and Northern Ireland. He hates himself for needing the title, and he realizes it won't actually fix anything, but he still wants it anyhow and hates himself for that too. Elizabeth is equally resentful and frustrated, and it plays across her face in her refusal to meet Philip's eyes. Episode 4 takes a Princess Margaret detour, but in Episode 5 the focus is finally on Her Majesty. She delivers a speech at a car manufacturing plant. "Many of you are leading uneventful, lonely lives where dreariness is the enemy. On your steadfastness and ability to withstand the fatigue of dull, repetitive work depends in great measure the happiness and prosperity of the community as a whole." That leads to a course correction, and the Queen is encouraged to televise her Christmas speech. Despite complaining that she feels like a common little showgirl in her dress and makeup under the bright lights, the Christmas speech is televised, and Elizabeth knows welcoming the general public into her home is the right thing to do. But enough about that, let's get to the Nazis. It's Episode 6. We check in with Edward, who has left the country to live with the love of his life in the American divorcee Wallace, as one does. They are living out their life at fancy dress parties, but Edward sighs. A life of pleasure really has its limits. He decides to take a quiet trip back to England, hoping he can land a largely ceremonial position that would allow him to regain his popularity and restore his legacy. But there is no coming back for Edward as the Queen learns the full story. Historians have discovered incriminating secret documents and feel very strongly that they must be published, as it's their duty as historians to reveal the truth. Edward tells Elizabeth that he wants to serve his country. She says that he had his chance and he gave it up. She shares what she's discovered about his relationship with the Nazi High Command. Edward defends his choices by saying he felt England and Germany should never be enemies after World War I. He asks Elizabeth to make peace with him, telling her the public will side with him and dismiss the documents as propaganda. Conflicted, Elizabeth asks Philip for his advice and forgiveness, to which Philip defensively responds, "What have I done now?" Ironically, nothing for once. Palace Intrigue will be right back. With the Nazis now dispatched, we spend another episode of Margaret's love life before Episode 8 introduces us to Jackie Kennedy. Everyone is fawning over Jackie, in contrast to the seemingly middle-aged Queen, although the two are the same age. The Kennedys royally mess up protocol in greeting the Queen, but that seems to bother Elizabeth far less than Philip's incessant flirting with the divine and frightfully clever American president's wife over dinner. "I hope my wife isn't causing too much trouble," JFK, played by Michael C. Hall, says to Philip in a manner that expresses he knows exactly how much trouble she's causing. Philip replies, "You do know you're the luckiest man on earth." Elizabeth decides to take Jackie on a tour of the palace. Away from the crowd, the First Lady opens up about being shy by nature and often wonders how she ended up living her life in a fishbowl. Her logic is that she sought out someone strong to protect her, and that person, her husband, thrives on a crowd and would rather be surrounded by 10,000 people than be alone with her. Episode 9 focuses on young Prince Charles, who one day will be a very major player in our podcast. He's shy and sensitive, which unfortunately means he gets picked on at school constantly. Philip wants Charles to stay at the boarding school. Philip's uncle Dickie comes to visit Charles and tells his mother that Charles is tormented from the minute he wakes up until the moment he goes to bed, referring to his school as hell on earth. But taking Charles out of school is not an option. Philip doesn't care how awful his son's existence in Scotland is. Instead, he threatens his wife that breaking promises to him may have more of a consequence to the crown than Charles being bullied. "Charles' education is my responsibility. Yours is to honour your word and keep your husband." In the season finale, there is a plot involving Russian spies, call girls, and someone in a photo called a mystery man. When Elizabeth asks point blank if he is the mystery man in the photo, he tells her not to be ridiculous. "I am not ridiculous," she tells him. "You are a mystery man to me." Elizabeth is left in massive empty rooms, her arms crossed over her midsection, her purse strap tucked primly into one elbow. Next Saturday, a recap of Season 3 as a new cast takes over. Tomorrow, a normal episode of Palace Intrigue. And there you have it. If you'd like to email us, our address is thepalaceintrigue@gmail.com. Please follow us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your favourite shows. I'm Mark Francis. My thanks to John McDermott. This is Palace Intrigue, and good times.